So I want to start off with saying that a lot has happened, since the turn of the century. We started out, if you look back in the year 2000 till date, I'd like to ask you, in your experience, what has changed?
Okay, so I started writing like just a little before 2000s, about 1998. So I got a sense of what was happening in the market before that. But let me just say that in the last 25 years, things have changed a lot more than they did in the 50 years before that. And in the last 10 years, they have changed a lot more in the last 25 years. There's so many things to talk about, from the areas that you're seeing restaurants in, the localities that have developed, the kind of concepts that have come about, the formats, the cuisines. There's a whole new generation of chefs and entrepreneurs and people trained in the industry. The market has become so much more segmented, so much more differentiated. If I had to look at just one thing, and if you had to look at things like 25 years ago, you just had to look at coffee, for instance. 25 years ago, if you had a coffee, you went to a place, you either got the filter coffee, or you got this coffee you got this milk with instant coffee in it, which just would not dissolve, no matter how much you stir.
Yeah.
So those were the two kind of options that you had. And today you look at, you've got coffee from all over the world really, and now you're in a way spoiled for choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that has changed, but that's looking at it from a consumer's perspective or a journalist's perspective. I'm sure for you as well, as someone from the profession, you've seen and you've experienced a lot of change working with people.
Yeah, absolutely. In food, to start with, there are so many things that I can think of, but one big one is health. I'm not talking about the health buffs who are looking at high protein diet. That's obvious. I'm talking about the kind of health issues we've been having in India, from obesity to diabetes to heart problems to cancer. People are getting so conscious about, say, sugar, for example. When I try to sell cookies and I say it's an absolutely indulgent product, I'm not trying to pretend that it's healthy. They say, yeah, but I'm pre-diabetic or I'm diabetic. So what do you do for that? And the answer is, we have stuff with jaggery and we have stuff with dates. And I'm thinking, like, do you know what kind of sugar dates has per gram? And I realize that perception is greater than reality. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think I completely agree with that, and especially when it comes to food, and especially when it comes to health. It's something that I don't actually talk about because the information changes so rapidly, and so many things keep changing that you can never be sure that you actually have the right information or you're saying the right thing. And a lot of this is very, very fad driven. For instance, gluten. I mean, everyone takes gluten off the menu, but the percentage of people who are actually responsive or sensitive to gluten is extremely minute, But also the other thing, I mean, apart from health, that for me that has been really big in Bombay particularly, is how neighborhoods have developed. So 25 years ago, again, it was all about South Bombay, which was great for me because I didn't have to go anywhere. But if you look at Olive, for instance, where we're sitting, I mean, it's 2000, I think that it opened. It kind of launched Bandra as being one spot in the city. And today you have multiple venues. I mean, you have Bandra, you have BKC, you have Parel, you have Powai, you have Thana, all of those. And that's kind of breaking up the market as well. So for me, it's quite a challenge to say, when a restaurant opens, how do you decide where you want to open? And the other part is, if you open successfully in one part of the city, does that necessarily translate to you having success in a different part of the city?
No, absolutely. But when you spoke about Olive, I can't help say that in the year 2000, at the turn of the century, I was standing right here and helped A.D. Singh build this place. It was brick and stone when I was here. And A.D. had this vision of this place. And I remember the beautiful floor that you see just now, so charming. It didn't have tiles like this. It had yellow floor, but with plaster. And it was done once, it didn't look good. He said, break it down. Done twice, but then when the color dried, the shade of the yellow wasn't yellow enough. And then he said, do it a third time. And the architect, Nazer Wadia, said, do you really want to take this up? It's a lot of money and it's a lot of time. And he said, yes, I want to do it. And I think that's what brand building is about. And despite a strong brand here, having other locations do not guarantee success. So it's not that all brands of a restaurant of any kind in one location will succeed in another, because the catchment area in each locality, the people in each locality respond differently to the same brand. Sometimes price points may differ in that brand. Sometimes certain dishes you may not have. Sometimes you may not have alcohol in a certain locality because that's not what the clients want. So listening to your consumer is really what's important. And I think you have built, in a sense, your work completely around psychographics or demographics of consumers and how they think, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I've also changed the way that I write over time. So when I started out, I was extremely stern. I was extremely critical. I mean, I came from a food background. I briefly ran a restaurant. I did not have the advantage of a book like this at that point to kind of guide me and tell me, like, where I'm going right and wrong. So I was very critical. I was very tough on restaurants. But over the years, I've realized that there is a kind of a relationship between the clientele and restaurants. You can't have the same expectations of a product at different price points. It will change automatically. You can't have the same expectations in different neighborhoods, because the demographics of the city are such that you will have different sets of people who have had different sets of food experiences, which they are bringing to the table, which restaurateurs and entrepreneurs have to take into account before creating menus, before creating the ambience, before deciding the level of experience of service. So for me, that is how I have changed in valuing a restaurant and trying to understand a restaurant. But I find that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand this, and a lot of restaurants are very ego-driven, especially when restaurateurs open them. And one of the things I notice when I'm doing a review, I will see a whole bunch of dishes. There's one dish that will stick out. I say, it doesn't fit in here. And then I will ask the waiters or the managers, why is this here? And they say, oh, this is the owner's favorite. And then, it all kind of falls into place. But I'm sure you've also dealt with this. I mean, entrepreneurs and egos are
no, absolutely, absolutely. But before I address that, I must say that, when you mentioned your own experience of running a restaurant, I think the sensitivity which you would have got, like that movie Chef, the Chef, was it? Something like that? Yeah. Chef. Yeah, where the food reviewer, the restaurant critic is so harsh initially, and then he takes a beating with the restaurant industry, and then he understands what
everyone compares me to Antoine Lewis. So
no, but you're so right. Oftentimes, restaurateurs are it's completely ego driven, and if I'm working with them, then I have to temper down that ego, because otherwise it's not the right compass to point in the right direction. You need to have some logic around it, and actually that's a large part of what my book describes. That don't think that just because you have a great family recipe, or you're a landlord and you have a space, so you will use that, or someone has complimented you or any particular reason, or you're a professional in the industry, if you're a restaurant manager, doesn't mean you can run your own restaurant, because you need to have an entrepreneurial mindset for that. So there are many, many nuances which I've covered in this book.
Yeah, and one of the things also that I tell a lot of people, and which has been asked of me, I said, you know so much about food, you've got a food experience, why don't you start a restaurant? I said, I've done it once, never again. But one of the other things also is that, a lot of people say, oh, will tell someone that, oh, you're such a great cook, or people think that they're such a, let me start a restaurant. I say that is the worst way to kind of start a restaurant. A restaurant is not just about food, it's not just about cooking. If you love to cook, do not start a restaurant. It will kill your love for food entirely.
Yeah. Though in all fairness, passion does matter, and rising to the occasion does matter. I remember, when I was working with Izumi, there was a time when there were shortage of people to serve, and the restaurant was full. It was overbooked. In fact, we had one of the partners' wives also standing with me, and we were taking reservations. Everybody was doing everything, and all the directors, and one of whom is here, Neil, and he didn't need to take that handheld terminal and serve, but he did it. Everybody did whatever it took. There was zero ego. There was all humility and full service. That's what it took. And so I really think that at any level that you are, financially or socially or otherwise, you need to be able to roll up your sleeves and do what it takes.
Yeah, because it's really tough, and it's something that you've talked about in your book. I mean, you've talked about health earlier, but there's the health of the owner and the restaurateur as well that is really important. And the only time that I have fallen seriously ill in the last 27 years was that 1 year that I was running things. I mean, I have never fallen ill, and it is an extremely stressful work environment. I mean, just imagine like you've got dinner service and like someone like a chef like me turns up late, like 2 minutes before service. You are going to be dying, so.
No, undoubtedly. What can you do about that? What did you think?
No, I mean, I didn't think anything. I just got out of it. I realized that I can't manage. But I think that not enough of restaurateurs, I think, take care of their health enough. And I think that is a problem.
So no, that's absolutely true. I think business leaders, entrepreneurs of all walks of life, not just restaurateurs, need to understand that their health, body, mind, and spirit, is their operating system in life generally. And that's why I've also written in fair depth about fitness for business leaders within that book. I feel that one is you need a certain physical endurance to be able to handle that. The other is every day you take a beating where people criticize your food, criticize your service, and have something or the other almost trolling you. And to be able to cope, to be able to sleep at night, sometimes you cannot sleep. It hurts you so much when someone trolls you. But you have to learn to live with that. You have to learn to wake up each day and say, I will deliver the best that I can with excellence. Today is a new day. And if you don't give yourself that hope with freshness, your spirit will go completely down. And that's why, and think clearly with a clear mind, because you can get really confused and you can lash back at people. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it's warranted. If a customer is acting like a jackass, it happens. It's, customers are not always God, So, oh yeah, completely. So you have to respond sometimes because they can be other things besides God, yeah. So
it's not just customers are not God, and I mean that's the whole thing that needs to be changed. I think critics and bloggers like Kalyan and television critics like Kunal, like yeah, Kunal is
But
very
you all
good.
influence things, yeah. Oh my God.
We're also not God, and we're also quite fallible. Quite yeah. So I mean, we also add on a lot of pressure intentionally and unintentionally as well, which is something that restaurateurs also have to deal with.
No, absolutely. We have to lift the bar. It helps lift the bar, honestly, even if it is a critique is of something or someone is because you genuinely wanted to improve. I don't see restaurant reviewers or people like yourselves. I don't see that as negative at all. I mean, customers who don't understand what it takes. Like people like yourselves are steeped deeply into this business, and so you understand what it takes. You understand the pain that goes behind it, and so you will, even if you say something strongly, you will temper it with your wisdom and the way you word it and say it. Like, I mean, I know, for example, in your shows, Kunal, you always speak about the good parts of the show, and I mean, good parts of the food and the good parts of the efforts of the entrepreneur. And Kalyan, you as well. I mean, you'd rather speak about the good
Kalyan
parts.
is very critical.
Really? Okay.
He's not as bad as me, but
Kunal recently said something in his podcast that I think now we seek out places where the food's going to be good. So there's nothing much. Don't go to bad places.
That's a very wise thing.
Yeah.
But how do you know which are those places?
I don't know who that is. Yeah, you can sniff it out.
Okay.
Or you go to the bad place and don't write about it.
Good point.
Or go to a better place after that to appreciate it even.
No, absolutely. Whenever I have a bad experience, I never write about it. If I have a good experience, I have only 5-star reviews on Google, not because every place I've been to is a 5-star, but I only rate those places and speak about those places. Otherwise, I never speak about anyone who I've blasted, who's done poorly.
Since we are having a conversation, but I have immense empathy for people who run restaurants. Because if you look at what is happening on social media right now, everybody says that you must be mentally unstable to start a restaurant. 90% of all restaurants fail. So whoever is running a restaurant and whoever has cooked that food that day could have made a mistake. He could have had a bad day. The chef might have, just not woken up from the right side of the bed. You have to be a little more generous to people who are working really hard and serving you food. The fellow is standing right next to you, telling you kaisa lag raha hai khana. And I look up to him and start abusing his food is not in my character. I don't like doing it. I'd rather keep quiet and never write about it and never go back to the place than sit and try to ruin what he's worked so hard. Nobody intends to start a bad restaurant.
Correct.
Nobody intends to cook bad food. Shit happens,
Yeah.
So you let it go.
Absolutely.
It's my theory.
No, absolutely.
Sometimes like this, there's another khana. If you feel that there's something irrational that maybe the salt is this thing or whatever, then you can tell the person that this is what I feel. So I think that's sort of okay.
Sure.
And I think the worst thing is when someone says that it's okay, then moves on. That's a sign that
Yeah, that's terrible. They have no standards.
No. If you say that the German either say it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just being polite.
True.
I understood a famous theatre actor who was asked this question. After a play, you normally go backstage and meet the actors. And when they say, so how did you like my play?
Yeah.
And if you've really not liked the play, what do you say?
Sure.
You don't go backstage and say, I hated your play.
True.
You just go and say, as expected.
Oh, lovely! I'm going to use that dialogue, Kunal. I think a lot of us will. So if now that'll become a new hashtag, as expected. Done. As Kunal expected. Okay, as Kunal expected. Okay. No, Antoine, super catching up. I wish we had more time, but I'm going to now ask to. I mean, if you have any final thoughts
I'm
before
good.
we'll
Can't keep the queen waiting.
Done. Shatbhi, you're up. Please join us. What's one thing that's common between you and Antoine which also gives you sensitivity. Same thing. I don't know if you're aware, Antoine.
I'm
She's
sure he
also
is.
run a restaurant. You know that?
No, I didn't actually.
Ah.
Really?
So she also has.
You were in
the
my life then.
experience. Yeah.
He didn't invite. He was probably scared of my room.
Ooh,
Okay.
that's hitting.
Okay.
Yes.
No,
So
tell us. I mean, what has been your experience? You know, you've seen so many restaurants and bars, especially which you've built, and you've seen successes and failures.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about successes and failures?
Oh, absolutely.
What-
Absolutely.
Your experience?
So yeah, I wish I'd read your book then. I would have probably been smarter. I probably wouldn't have given in to just that whole thing, nahi yaar, karna hi hai. So honestly, that's how I began. It's a good idea, let's just do it. 4 friends got together and said, let's just do this. And we got a lot of things right, but I think in my mind, the most important thing that we got wrong was the location. We thought we could get away with it, but we couldn't. We didn't ever get bad reviews. We always had great reviews about everything. But even when you have great reviews, it doesn't help if the footfall is not enough to survive.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, what did us in. I have to say, unlike Antoine, I did not fall ill.
Okay.
I enjoyed the experience thoroughly.
Okay.
Even losing money didn't make me feel bad.
Okay.
I still enjoyed the whole experience, and I would never say that, I wish I regret it, or because I don't regret it, because it was a massive learning curve for me. But the fact that I enjoyed every single day that I was there in spite of losing money and the pressure of having to, make sure that I was debt free, all that, I still had a great time.
Okay.
So the experience of the restaurant for me was fabulous. The experience of dealing with people, seeing how much they liked what we had done, all of that was fantastic. I think we dealt with everything reasonably well. If we had just got our location right, we probably would have done better. I can't say it would have been a massive success. We could have been, who knows? But if I had read the book, if I had spoken with you, and I'm sure I knew you then, but
Yes, you did.
Exactly,
You
and I
did.
wish I had longer conversations with you about that.
Okay.
But there we are.
No, so I want to say one of the things that you said was you had an idea, and you all had an idea. And in any business, not just in the restaurant business, many people have this thought that it all starts with an idea. And that's such a lovely, nice thing to say. But actually, that's not enough. So an idea is not enough. It has to be an opportunity. And what I mean by that is an idea plus consumer demand equals opportunity. And what do I mean by consumer demand? Exactly what you said, that there are enough people who will come frequently enough, who will pay the amount that you want them to pay and see value in that. And that's when the idea plus consumer demand equals opportunity. So oftentimes people miss out on that component and mistake an idea of equal to opportunity, but that's the difference.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we had an idea. We actually had opportunity as well. But what we did realize is that though we had great footfall in the evening, we had zero footfall during the day. And no amount of footfall in the evening made up for the fact that, we had zero footfall during the day. And that kind of did us in. Also, I think we really didn't do any serious background work. I admit that I was so excited about just running the damn place that I forgot that, we need to do homework as well. So between the 4 of us, we had 2 who were supposed to handle back end. I was handling the front of the house and the other one was handling the kitchen. But it's also important for each of them to know everything about everything else as well, which means that my job was also to keep track of what was happening in the back end and not just leave it to 2 other people. And I didn't do that. And because I didn't do that, I didn't know what was happening on a daily basis, where I could have made corrections in some way or another, or at least maybe decided to say goodbye faster. But I'm glad that we at least figured it out someday and said, okay, this is it. We can't go deeper in debt. Time to, But I think it's so important that even though you enjoyed the whole experience like I did, to understand what mistakes you made and what you could have done better, where you wouldn't have been in the dumps like me. It's important to know the back end really well. So you may have opportunity, but if you don't measure what's happening on a day-to-day basis, if you don't know what the back end is doing, if you don't know what your outgoings are and how they balance out what's coming in,
Sure.
if you do not monitor that on a daily basis, or at least you know it, get hold of that weekly summary, look at it, analyze it, understand it. That's so important. So, apart from getting the location wrong, this
I think,
is one of the mistakes which, again, if I had read this, I would have been on my toes.
It takes a lot of guts to start a restaurant, as Kunal said, possibly some madness. But it takes even more guts to admit this publicly, that too. And to share it. And
it is what it is. It is what it is.
It's amazing that
it is what it is.
That you share that, because
I'm still saying that I had a fabulous time doing it.
Okay.
No regrets whatsoever.
No,
I don't even
absolutely.
care that I lost the money.
Sure.
I just worked harder
Yeah.
and paid it back.
No, it's absolutely worth
But-
the
but-
experience.
the
Entrepreneurship is
experience
something
was
else
fabulous.
altogether. In fact, speaking about entrepreneurship, sometimes what I've found is that, often, actually always, the mindset of the entrepreneur makes a lot of difference. If the person has entrepreneurship background in some other industry, then they need to learn about the restaurant part of the business. But oftentimes there are people who are from the restaurant industry, either a chef, they don't know about the other department, or a restaurant manager, they don't know about other sections, or they don't have an aerial view, and they don't have entrepreneurial experience. So that's why throughout the book I've woven the restaurator piece and with the entrepreneurial piece.
Correct.
Because that's something they don't teach at the hotel schools.
They don't teach
And in
you
fact, I was
anywhere.
speaking with the some senior leadership decision makers at the National Council for Hotel Management, and some educationists, and happily just discovering that they're going to start entrepreneurship as a subject in hotel management. I remember KV Simon, my ex-principal, telling me at some point about a decade after I graduated, I asked him, what can I study more? And I said, Ravi, I can't teach you anything more about a fork and a knife. You just have to learn more about entrepreneurship. And that's when I went. At that time, the only place to go to was IIM Ahmedabad. They had a small and medium enterprise program, which is fabulous. Now they even started a restaurant program there. I don't know how that is. But just to educate people that the entrepreneurial aspect is, the dealing with uncertainty.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that monthly, income every time. And even if you don't want to become an entrepreneur, it's very important when you're leading businesses as a CEO or as a business head in any organization that you have an intrapreneurial kind of attitude. That's why they say you need to take ownership. And that's one of the leadership workshops that I conduct.
No, absolutely. In fact, in a lot of the restaurants and bars that I have consulted, you can sometimes tell within your first 5 meetings whether this particular bar or restaurant will actually do well or it won't, because you can get the feeling from the people you're working with, from the clients themselves, what is the mental makeup they have, what kind of a vision they have, and what the attitude is towards the whole venture. And obviously you're at odds with it, because I really sometimes want to say to them, okay, just stop whatever you're doing, just don't go forward, don't do this, because this is not how it's going to work. And sometimes, me being me, I actually say that. They don't like it very much, but the smart ones actually listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the smart ones actually listen and they sit back and they analyze what I've said and then they, change. And very often they are the ones who then are successful in the way they are. A lot of people who, like we were talking about earlier, who party a lot, think that they're really great at running restaurants. I've met a few of those.
Yeah.
They party all the time and then suddenly someone spots them and says, oh, you should become the CEO of this restaurant chain. And then they come in and then they start telling you what to do and you're looking at them saying, are you serious? Because they're looking at it from the perspective of them partying outside and what they want, and that's what they want to bring to the table, not understanding that it really isn't how it works.
Sure.
So, people who party like to start restaurants. People who party, who have a lot of, the stuff that I lost, they like to start restaurants. So, unless people like us, all of us, who actually have a deeper sense of what it takes to run a restaurant, what it takes to create one, there's so much pain, there's so much hard work. The first thing I tell someone who says, I want to start a restaurant is, please don't. And then I ask them, okay, if you have a lot of money and you're happy to lose that money, let's do this.
Absolutely. No, I think on one hand, I mean, you're so right. I completely agree with you. I feel I've experienced the same things myself. I have the same approach in terms of responses to these kind of people. And what I find is that all our clients are high net worth individuals, are ultra high net worth individuals. That's great and it's necessary. But if they are not coachable, if they are not coachable and they're not open in their minds, I bow out of that relationship. And because it's going to lead nowhere, it's going to lead to frustration on that side and on this side.
Absolutely.
It's not going to lead to success. And at this point, I want as many victories. And a large part of that is the attitude of the entrepreneur. I can see Marian is smiling, resonating with that as well.
No, but really, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen absolutely brilliant bars or restaurants being decimated by one person at the top. When I mean decimated, I mean decimated. From being perfectly good places, doing well, one wrong person comes in at the top and destroys it all. And I've seen those who come from very little experience of the restaurant business, but have the right attitude, have some vision, and really want to create something and want to work hard and want to get the best people that they know in the business to help them get there. And I've seen them doing really a great job. So I think attitude is so important, and willing to understand what it takes to make a really good restaurant. And a tool like this, no, I'm not going to start another restaurant, but but at least it will help me give gyan to my other customers, a little more gyan. And maybe I might even just present them with your book and say, "Pad lo bhai pehle, ek baar pad lo, fir baat karte hain." So I think,
So that means a
So
lot.
thank you
coming
for
from
this.
You. No, thank you. It means a lot coming from you. All of you who've run restaurants and who've endorsed the book. I've been blessed. I've got A.D. Singh.
I know, I can see that.
Naresha Kabli.
Ooh, yeah.
Asha Javeri of Swati Snacks. All these people. Brian Carvalho, from Forbes India, and I know you never, but yeah, very grateful for all the support, and I really hope my goal of this book, because I've been at it for 20 years. I've written on this topic for 20 years. The first book that I wrote on restaurant startup was in 2005. I began writing it right after Olive in 2001. I worked in Olive in 2000, in the year 2000. I was their first GM, their first employee right here. And 2001, I began writing the first avatar. That was published in 2005. Then 2013, 2015 were second and third. This is the fourth avatar, which is completely revised because Jaiko's thing was, we don't want you to rewrite this book. We want you to write a fresh book. That was their criteria. And post-pandemic, what I learned and what I saw, the pain in the entrepreneurs, already the kind of pain financially and emotionally that restaurateurs go through is tremendous. So I feel in less than $500, if someone has the patience to read, it will save them lakhs, at least if not crores. Don't do it. You know, Manoj, I mean, you know what kind of money goes into this. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's my hope for the book, to push it out there as much as possible.
Absolutely, and we'll push it out for you as well.
Thank you, Shatbhi. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Any questions that anyone from the audience would like to ask, either about the book or personally or professionally? I'm happy to answer. Ask me anything.
So maybe more than a question, maybe a comment, and rightly so what you guys were discussing just now. Somewhere midway during the book, there's a little portion called the value of dissent.
Right.
And that's exactly what you guys were discussing. Why do we need good restaurants? We need good restaurateurs. We should not be discouraging them and allowing everyone to take a pass. But it's good to listen to good advice around, because a lot of people come from the right places. And you put that in the book very, very explicitly. And I think that's a very important part.
Thanks, Dhiren. Dhiren actually is the CEO of a food business, Kia Foods.
Flavors.
Flavors. And he was my batchmate in catering college, and he's led many businesses, large food businesses. He's also run his own businesses. So coming from you, that's terrific. Thanks, Dhiren. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Prabal, do you want to pass the mic, please?
It was an amazing discussion. It's related to the entire conversations. And my question is, you mentioned in your book that an entrepreneur has to take one step down in terms of looking at the operations, and this came about around COVID. You referenced that context. My question is, given that it's a specialized business, specialized line of work, entrepreneurship in this field, in food business. So when an entrepreneur has a vision, how do you, given the kind of dynamics that we spoke about, we heard about, dealing with clients, irate customers, different kinds of other issues, and things like operational issues that may come up. How do you get your vision translated into a similar kind of thing in terms of your employees and others? Because you're not always present, and all of this happens with your employees facing the customers, or your employees dealing with the changes. So you have to have that similar kind of an execution that you have in your mind to be done on ground. So how do you
Absolutely. Thanks, Prabal. By the way, Prabal is ex-major of the Indian Army. He works with risk management. He's out of the Indian Army now, and he's written 2 bestsellers on war stories. So Prabal, right from the time I was in catering college, one of my vacation trainings, and I mentioned a small incident, and I'll tell you who that person is. I haven't named that person in the book, but I'll tell you who that person is. In Taj banquets, we would hear the tick-tock of her heels, of her shoes. And this was Shireen Bakiwala. Many of you would have heard her. She's a legend in the Taj group of hotels.
But TikTok has scared so many.
Yeah. So I didn't name her in the book, but that is it's written in the book without her name. And whenever you heard that TikTok, everybody would scramble around and pretend that they're doing some work. And as soon as she went, everybody would sigh of relief, like, oh my God, she's gone. And excellence was there only at that particular moment. And from that time I said, these grown men are afraid of this frail woman, but she's got, and she knew how to get the job done. And I said, I must learn this. How for me, the best thing in leadership is how do you get work done in your absence? And from that time, I've been studying that. And it is with that thought that when I've written about the people piece. In fact, there's one section in the book where I've used the word seva, because not that this is a religious angle, but I'd gone with a friend of mine from a restaurant called Khane Khas, who took me to Hemkund Sahib, and we went up the mountains and saw the seva done by the Gurudwara there. And I felt that seva is something which either is innate in a human being, where it doesn't matter whether you tip me or not, it doesn't matter whether you pay me salary or not. For the love of service, I want to serve you, I want to make you happy. That is inborn in some people. But can you inculcate it? And a large part of the work that I do in terms of leadership or mentoring of entrepreneurs or mentoring of business leaders is that. How do you inculcate that? So understanding the mindset of the team there, understanding what their individual problems are and what makes them tick. It's not just the danda and the carrot, because that doesn't work very much anymore. I think it's developing people to be better human beings and to be better professionals regardless of where they work. So if a particular organization hires me and says, do a leadership program for my team, I am not teaching them how to help, say, a Sahara Star hotel. I will teach them how to become better individuals, more efficient, and become better versions of themselves, which is taking off from Aikido, which Kaushik and I trained some years ago, which is become a better version of yourself. So if you spur and if you trigger how to become a better version of yourself, personally and professionally, you can reach that.
One small question. We go to so many restaurants and we've read about them or we have seen them in the media. What are you saying is seriously, is this the place? Is it all about how good a PR agency you pay, how good an agency you hire, or really there's some content in the restaurant business?
Okay. So Sanjeev, thank you. Sanjeev, by the way, is a chartered accountant by profession. He runs a chartered accountancy firm, but also he runs a beautiful homestay, should I call it, in the mountains of Hathipao in Uttarakhand. He and his wife Amisha are both here. So thanks for that question, Sanjeev. PR, you pay a lot of money and you get visibility. And that's one part of brand building. Social media is another part of brand building. But I think that's more about awareness of the brand. It's more about some kind of customer engagement and awareness, but it doesn't translate into credibility. What translates into credibility is if you transact with each person, every interaction with each person is what builds your brand. I'll give you a couple of examples. I was in the kitchen of Swati Snacks at Curry Road. They have a central kitchen. And Asha Javeri, who heads that here in Mumbai since many years, she was there in the kitchen and we were walking around and she looks at a stainless steel bowl of sitafal, custard apple, de-seeded already, ready for ice cream because they make fresh ice cream. She looks at it, smells it, has a frown, picks up a spoon and tastes it and then says, "Kisne kiya?" And I can see her anger rising. Okay? And she says, is this the Swati standard? She jhadaus them completely. And the guy who says it's a lot of money and how many ice creams will we have to sell to do this? And she says, I will throw this on your head, throw it right now. So anyone around that person, there's a ripple effect of that is brand Swati. Similar things happen in brand Izumi. If a Nuresha Kabli has food which is below par, she will throw it away. She will scream because she demands excellence. Anyone around her, whether it's a guest, it's a staff member, it's a vendor, like I said with AD, demanding excellence here. That is why these three brands, Olive, Izumi, Swati, which I've been fortunate to work with amongst many other brands, are among the top 50 brands in India. That's how you build a brand. Every interaction, even when no one is watching, they know that this is the quality and standard that this brand demands. I dare not do anything otherwise. That's brand building.